I leave the floor to Professor Eugenio Brusa. Welcome and thank you for being here tonight.
Good evening and welcome to everybody, and thank you to be connected now to the Politecnico di Torino. So today we try to introduce the PhD programs in our university, and in particular to give an answer why, for my life, from the point of view, the future potential candidate should be a challenge to be a PhD student at the Politecnico di Torino. Basically, the idea is to understand why, as a candidate, should I feel in the right place if I start my activity at the Politecnico di Torino as a PhD student. And we try to investigate now some issues related to the life you can from here in Torino. What kind of training is provided and offered by the university? What kind of research path and topics and competences and skills which will be introduced and offered, provided, and in particular something related to the placement. So first of all, is interesting to see where we are, and in particular the town, the territory, and how you can be acquainted to be here and to live in Torino. And to this, I give the floor to Professor Verga. She is Vice Director for the International Relations.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. Very briefly, I would tell you two words about Torino, which is an international city, former capital of Italy, and very nice to visit together with the region where we are located, into which we have different premises. And not only we have 4 different locations in town, but we are also located in the territory, and I really invite you to browse the web and search for Torino and Piemonte and visit us. Now, we're not local. We are obviously locally grounded, but we have established campuses in Uzbekistan and China as a part of our international strategy and activities. As a matter of fact, we have 33 plus students enrolled in our campus, 15% of which are international students. Now, we have some 700 PhD candidates, which is what you're more interested into. And the reason why you should have an interest in our faculty, in our academia, is because we are ranked 33 for engineering and technology in the world, and you are the first for graduate employment rate by the US employability, graduate employability ranking. Now, we have very many research activities spanning over all research areas, and mainly industrial engineering, physical, chemical, mathematical sciences for engineering, civil engineering, and information and electronic engineering. We are organized in research areas to meet demand from research standpoint, industrial standpoint, and we are also organized into the interdepartmental centers, which are very research focused, and they were generated relatively recently to collect knowledge, experience, skilled professors, students, and industries to connect and focus on specific areas of interest, and namely a very hot topic in the world. We have a system for technology transfer and knowledge sharing, and just to give you a couple of numbers, we have some over 800 research contracts per year with business partners, and they add up to over 20 million euros yearly. And a number of our companies which are engaged with us in these technological challenges and research challenges are shown here. And you can see big names in the IT and mechanical sector, automotive, and energy, so on and so forth. We are very proud that we were awarded the Human Resources Excellence in Research by the European Community back in November 2013 because of the principles that we support for international researchers and for the Charter of Researchers and Code of Conduct. Okay. I leave the word back to Professor Brusa, Director of the Doctoral School. And again, please let me encourage you to visit websites for Torino and Piemonte and see where you would be living and working and researching and what would be the environment that you would be into if you decide to come for Politecnico di Torino. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca, for your kind introduction. So let me tell you that a benefit we have at the Politecnico di Torino is to have a frame, which is the doctoral school, within which we have all the activities organized from the point of view of the educational path and the research. I love too much to tell that this is not only the administrative frame, but is really a community, a scientific and technological community of PhD candidates, first of all, professors and supervisors, and also structures and frames, as you saw previously, the centers, in departmental centers, but even the local laboratories, which are belonging to the different departmental frames. So from this point of view, the PhD program is completely managed by the doctoral school. Is a gate for the interfacing between departments first inside our technical university, but not only, even between the world of our technical university and the external environment, the territory. In particular, as you saw previously, we have several contacts together with companies, professionals, and industries. So for all the typical branches of engineering and architecture, we have stakeholders directly connected and working together with us within the frame of the school. So from this point of view, a point which is very interesting is that the job placement is driven by these contacts, which are established during the program of each candidate. And then, generally speaking, at the end of this path, there is a set possibility to get a job in this territory, but not only worldwide, because many of the companies were based actually nearby the technical university, have obviously several units spread over the world. For the point of view of the research path, we have research-focused programs which will be formed and performed during your program activity, which are provided by the departments. But we have also an educational path. In particular, we prepare every year some tailored courses just for PhD candidates, including soft skills courses, providing the typical knowledge, for instance, in communication or work strategy, project management, and self-funding and other. But even in the so-called hard skills, that means technological issues and methodologies. And this activity is partially performed within our laboratories. It is also possible to have a joint cooperation together with other universities and academia. And in particular, there are many co-tutels programs, which are typically programs performed together with abroad universities, foreign universities, in even some institutions like excellence research centers. And there is the possibility to perform an activity abroad up to 18 months during your career. So from this point of view, the training is quite complete. We have several courses, but we have also an educational path for the supervisor. So these improve the quality of the courses and the career of the candidate. In particular, a set of courses is the so-called excellence courses. These are taught by professors and guests who are coming from other universities or even sometimes from companies and industries, sharing their skills and competencies. So it's possible to have a mixed training based on the academic and industrial and professional environments and skills. From this point of view, we can perform a complete educational path, which are based on the 4 areas which were described previously. The industrial engineering first, the information and communication technologies, the basic and applied science and technologies, physical, chemical, mathematical science, and even in the field of engineering and environmental architecture and civil engineering in particular. What is interesting to see is that the programs are many. We have up to 16 programs. Some of those are shared together with the University in Torino, in particular bioengineering and medical surgical sciences, which is an educational path shared together with the School of Medicine and Surgery. We have the urban and regional development, which is also shared together with the university, and the pure and applied mathematics, in which both the theoretical approaches and the applied mathematics for industries and technical issues are considered and developed. In addition to all the typical technological programs and the School of Architecture from the point of view of the landscape heritage and history and project. So from this point of view, it's interesting to discuss a little bit together with my colleague, Professor Roberto Zanino, who is in charge of the internationalization activity for the PhD programs, about the connection we have with foreign countries and other universities.
Yes, okay. Hi, everybody. Actually, before starting with that, I would like to add a couple of words to what was said. I think it's just, frankly speaking, like a great time to be a PhD student in the Politecnico di Torino. And this is not just a personal opinion, but it's based on facts. If you come to the Politecnico di Torino, you know, for PhD today, you find an environment which is recognizing the essential, fundamental importance of your role coming to the Politecnico di Torino to perform research and help us in this very, very difficult task. So the Politecnico di Torino, under the guidance especially of the new rector and the new management, is putting a lot of effort into the development of a PhD program, into the support of PhD students, increasing their salary to a, I think we can say, record level for Italy at least, and becoming very, very competitive at European level, and increasing the number of fellowships and therefore the number of opportunities that are offered to the students. Now, coming to the point that was raised by Professor Brusa, we are, as a Politecnico, we are joining many, many international networks, in particular, of course, European networks. But in some cases, the range and scope of these European networks goes beyond the borders of Europe and can extend, for instance, I will give you an example of this particular experience to the Latin American region. And I understand that several of you are coming from that region. So inside the borders of Europe, for instance, to give an example, we are launching inside the cluster network a proposal for a European university. It will be called Unite, which is, of course, saying it all. And inside this Unite, one of the biggest efforts will be related to development of a United Doctoral School, which should try and enhance our collaboration with our other partners in this initiative and offer to you, coming then to the Politecnico or to one of our partners in this initiative, the opportunity to really live in a broad ecosystem, which does not include only us, but also our other partners spreading, you know, from the southern border of Europe, from Portugal and Spain, up to the northernmost regions in Finland and Sweden, okay? So this, I think, is just a great opportunity. Coming to the Latin America, Politecnico di Torino joined many years ago very interesting network which combines European universities and basically the top 9 to 10 top universities in Latin America, ranging from going from north to south, from Mexico and Panama and Argentina and Chile, Brazil, and so on. And so within this network, we have established a task because there is a significant interest, we understand, in the Latin American region to further pursue and support initiatives related to the PhD. And there is a very strong interest of the Politecnico to be able to attract students from those regions. So we strongly encourage you, many of you, not only coming from South America, of course, but from all over the world. We have similar initiatives in China, we have similar initiatives elsewhere in Asia and in other continents. But talking about this particular little experience of the Magalhães network, I think within this network, we are trying to realize the conditions to make your opportunities to come to Europe, and in particular, of course, in our case, to the Politecnico di Torino, through some additional attractive fringe benefits that we are trying to organize. So I strongly encourage you to look into this Magalhães network website and further pursue maybe these interesting opportunities that are being offered to you. Should I say something more looking at the slides? Or, yeah. I can tell you, okay. So, or maybe you are better. I mean, you are the director of the school.
No, actually,
go ahead.
This is just the final information to be sure that you have a complete impression about our PhD programs. So we have typically the possibility to give scholarships. So when you apply, obviously you compete to have this kind of scholarship. Nowadays is 1,400 euros per month. It was increased just recently by the new rector and the new governance of this university. And we have a participation and contributions coming from the Senate professionals and the indices. We have a people, let's say, population of foreign PhD candidates, quite complete in terms of nationalities and countries we are coming from. The duration is typically 3 years, and during these 3 years, you can have a partial learning activity based on the didactic activity and courses, and the largest part is related to the research activity, in particular the activity related to the thesis, the PhD thesis. There is a possibility to have also contacts together with industries and to have industrial PhD in cooperation with the companies in some cases. So there are some topics you will see within the call. There are the possibilities to apply for them. And from the point of view of the composition of our population, you can see that the students are coming from every kind of countries worldwide, in particular, not only from Europe, but even from Asia in particular, and South America as well. The eligibility requirements are completely described within the call. I just stress in this time that the deadline to apply is quite soon for this session, is February 13th, but there is a second possibility. The second section is open until May 17, so you can apply for these 2 dates, and you have the 2 sessions for the selection. In particular, is required the GRE general test. So in this case, if you perform the test, you will be refunded as soon as you will be enrolled inside our PhD programs. So from this point of view, I think that our doctoral school is completely implementing the European philosophies and principles, the so-called Salzburg principles, because we are aligned with the requirements of internationalization, intersectorial activity, that means cooperation between industry and academy, and also the multidisciplinary approaches, because as you saw, we have several branches, several programs, and the topics for the thesis, generally speaking, are based on a tight cooperation between departments, programs, and supervisors. So all the possibilities from the point of view of performing a nice thesis and a nice experience for your life are open to you. So you are welcome. So I kindly invite you to come to apply first and to perform this experience in our school. So I leave the floor to our candidates and doctors, because I think that they will explain more than me the experience they had in Turing.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Brusa. Thank you to the Vice Rector, Professor Francesca Verga, and also to Roberto Zanino. Now we will have Matteo Fasano and Astrid Safina. They will tell us about their experience at Politecnico di Torino. So please go ahead, Matteo.
Hello to everyone. I'm Matteo Fasano, a researcher at the Energy Department of Politecnico di Torino. And I'm very happy to share with you my experience about the PhD in energetics at Politecnico di Torino. So today I'm not in Torino. I'm not joining the webinar from Torino. I'm in Boston, since I'm visiting right now the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the MIT, for some collaborative research, which is, by the way, funded by Politecnico di Torino by means of a METOR grant. So. First of all, I will talk a little bit about the motivation, why I chose to do a PhD at Politecnico di Torino. Then I will tell you something about what I learned during these 3 years of doctorate, and finally the outcomes that I got from these 3 years of experience. So the motivation. So I'm actually I have a degree in mechanical engineering in Politecnico di Torino and Politecnico di Milano. And after this Master of Science, I did actually a few job interviews with some of the largest Italian companies in automotive and energy field. But I figured out that my aspiration was not just to apply state-of-the-art engineering and science, but rather to develop new technology and new science. So, and to do that, a degree was not enough, since you had to learn some additional skills that only a PhD can provide you. So, and these skills are basically some additional hard skill, as was said before, on your specific research topic. Then there are some complementary soft skills to help you to realize these research programs. And then there is the capacity to also talk with other scientists from very different research fields and disciplines. So a general interdisciplinarity. So starting from the first one, so from the hard skills. So if you can skip back to the group picture of my lab, just a slide before, please. Yes, thank you very much. So there are basically 2 ways, as was mentioned before the director, to learn the hard skill for a PhD student. So the first one is the more conventional one, is to attend some courses organized by Politecnico di Torino, and there are many of them, which sometimes are also provided by well-established professors from abroad. And the second one instead is to learn this advanced research skill on a daily basis from the people that you will join in your research group. So, for example, in my experience, I joined a small group at the Energy Department of Politecnico di Torino. You can see a picture here. And typically in a research group, there is a professor who will be your mentor and will provide you some strategic support. So you should focus on this topic or focus on this topic of research and whatever. And then there are several postdoctoral researchers and let's say older PhD students that can share with you on a daily basis some more technical information and technical skills to carry out your research. In the next slide, you can see, so you can, if you can just please skip in the next slide. Okay. In the next, no, the previous one. Thank you. So in this slide, you can see which was my main research focus in my PhD. So it was basically to learn how the thermodynamics and heat and mass transfer properties of water molecules are modified when they are in close proximity of a nanostructure surface. And in this picture, you can see a representation of the simulations, atomicity simulation that I learned to carry out during the PhD experience. So, but these hard skills were not just enough to carry out my research. And in the next slide, you can see, okay, in the next slide, you can see also how I learned during the PhD at Politecnico, how I learned also the complementary soft skills required for doing my research. So thanks to the quite generous funding from Politecnico as a travel grants, for me it was possible to travel around in different universities and institutions around the globe. So I went to University of Bath to improve my business and entrepreneurial capabilities. I went to a course on science dissemination. I went to Tel Aviv University and Princeton University also to do some interdisciplinary courses related to my research. And then, as I was mentioning, there is a third ingredient that makes you a successful PhD candidate, and is in the next slide. Okay, and is to learn how to interact with the scientists from very different research fields. So to learn the so-called interdisciplinary approach to research. And also, again, to the generous travel funding by Politecnico di Torino, for me, it was possible to visit a research institution in the United States, in Houston, in Texas, USA, and to join a research laboratory which was specialized in nanomedicine, with several chemical engineer, physician, biological engineer, and so on, which were actually complementary to my knowledge, which is basically a knowledge in energetics and heat and mass transfer properties. So thanks to this interaction with them, it was possible to arrive at the end to some interesting research results at the end of my PhD, which was basically to figure out which are the fundamental physical laws, and in particular a new scaling law that I developed during the PhD, that regulate this interaction between water molecules and the surface of nanoparticles. And this is very interesting, again, interdisciplinary speaking, to develop new nanoparticles for imaging and for therapeutic purposes. And that's where the interaction with the Houston method actually was very successful and useful. And in the next slides, you can see that at the end, this scaling law was also quite unexpectedly found to be interesting also for different research fields. And here again comes the interdisciplinarity. For example, in the field of water desalination, in collaboration, which was a research in collaboration with MIT, in the field of thermal transport of colloidal suspension, and also in this case was a collaboration with Imperial College in London, and in several other nanotechnology applications. So in the next slide, you can see that these results from my PhD were actually quite good, since I was awarded by the Italian President of Republic as the best young scientist in the field of energy research. And this was all because of these hard, soft skills learned during the PhD at Politecnico. And in the next slide, you can see, okay. So after this experience as a PhD student, several colleagues of mine decided to go into a company, and now they're working as R&D managers or workers in large companies in Italy and also abroad. But I decided to continue academic research, And even though I changed a little bit the topic, so I was no more, let's say, focusing on nanoscale properties of water, but I was instead more focused on macroscopic properties of water, and in particular on solar desalination. So despite the research topic was a little bit different from my from the PhD one, the PhD at Politecnico di Torino allowed me to learn the mindset and all the let's say research approach that should apply also to very different fields. And so that's the way I'm approaching now this research field and also this collaboration with MIT, where I'm actually involved right now. So just to conclude, I hope that I offer you just an overview of the motivation of my PhD, of doing a PhD, what I learned during the PhD, so the hard skill, the soft skill, and interdisciplinary approach, and also some outcomes after successfully completing this PhD. But of course, I will be very happy to answer to any of your curiosity or question about my experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matteo, and congratulations for your prize. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks for telling us your experience. It's been very helpful for everyone, I believe. So we have our last speaker, which is Astrid, and she is a PhD student in urban and regional development. I leave the floor to her, and then we will go through your questions, which should be sent on the Q&A section. Welcome, Astrid. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So today I will share with you my PhD journey that started 2 years ago. And the beginning of this adventure, it starts in my home country, Venezuela. After I obtained my bachelor and master degree, I was feeling like I wanted to continue doing research and I wanted to pursue a career as a researcher for my future. So from back home, I contacted a few of the professors I knew were working in the department I was interested in at the Politecnico of Turin. And after receiving some of their suggestions and some of their comments, a few months later, I started my official application at the Politecnico of Turin. So you may be asking, why did I choose Turin? So for me, at the beginning, it was a relatively easy decision because I was looking for a classical European city that was sharing a young and vibrant spirit. And that is what I found here in Turin. I found a city that is full of students of many places of Italy and also from many places around the world. And also I found a city that is available for students and young researchers since, for example, in comparison to other nearby cities like Milan, it is way more affordable. It has more a human scale. You can go to different places just by walking, cycling. So it's a very comfortable and a young city to live in. So after moving in to Turin and after being here for 2 years, I can say that the Polytechnic and doing the PhD here at the Polytechnic have worked for me as a bridge that has given me the opportunity to travel to many places. I've had the opportunity to be a visiting PhD in universities in China and in the UK. I've had the opportunity of participating in conferences and short courses in University of France. And finally, I've had the opportunity of collaborating on a daily basis with universities from China, from Switzerland, and sometimes from the UK. So for me, one of the biggest characteristics or the biggest advantages that the Polytechnic has offered during my 2-year research career has been the ability to belong to an international network and a network that worries for improving your skills as a researcher around the world. But that network has not been limited to an international scale. It has also been on the creation of a local network. Since I arrived, I've been taking part in a research group that is called China Room, which is a multidisciplinary group made by architects, urbanists, geographers, economics, urban planners. We are around 15 people, and all of us are concentrated in the study of urbanization, in particular with a focus on China. Belonging to this research group has brought to me many advantages. One of the biggest ones that I consider is the availability of the laboratories we have at our disposal. For example, we have 2 different dedicated rooms. One called the China room, located here in Turin, and we have a similar room located in China, which is called the Torino room. These 2 different rooms have helped me to do different kinds of fieldworks and spend there several times. Also, having the opportunity to connect and to rely with local contacts that are fundamental for developing my research. Within this research group, I have the chance of taking part in different activities that complement the academic support and formation that the doctoral school has offered me. For instance, I have participated and collaborated in the production of 2 main books, always related to the Chinese urbanization processes. I've also taken part in the design of real projects. Like, for example, we proposed a master plan for a Chinese city. We designed and constructed the Italian pavilion for the Shenzhen Design Week 2018. And now we're working in the renovation of the biggest piano factory in the world, located in Guangzhou in China. Also, with the support of the doctoral school and the support of the department I belong to, I have been able of collaborating and creating different conferences and inviting different international guests in order to put together excellent courses, and also taking part in international conferences around the world. During all these 2 years that I have been here, I have received many support and opportunity from the Polytechnic and in general from the Piedmont region. Since I've been here, I have been collaborating at the part-time with the doctoral school. I have received a scholarship from the Italian government and a scholarship from the regional entity of studies. I was awarded with the exchange program of the Erasmus+. And thanks to being a PhD student from the Polytechnic, I also received a short scholarship from the Chinese government. So all of these different mechanisms of support and financial aid had helped me to spend over 8 months abroad, improving and learning my professional skills. So for me, I say that the biggest advantage and the biggest recognition that I give to the Polytechnic and to my path as a PhD candidate is the construction of a network. The Polytechnic has been to me a place that has opened many doors and that have inserted me into an international network that I for sure will be using in my future. And for all the Spanish speakers that are listening and following this webinar, I can tell you in Spanish so you can understand it better. No pierdan la oportunidad de venir a una universidad que está dispuesta a abrirle las puertas y a construir los puentes de un futuro de la academia. Thank you very much for listening, and I think we'll have some questions.
Thank you, Astrid. Gracias. So thank you to everyone from the Doctoral School of Politecnico di Torino. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. We will go through all of your questions. Remember, everyone, that you need to submit them using the Q&A section. I see that we have some questions already and various ones. I would like to let you know in advance that for specifics on the courses, Politecnico di Torino offers 16 programs. So if you want to know the specifics, the details of, for example, Nader asked about electrical engineering, Fahima asked about industrial engineering, Guillermo asked about mathematics. For any specifics, we will send you an email tomorrow with all the details, so you can get in touch directly with Politecnico di Torino so they can give you to the full extent the information about each one of the courses. This also applies to the questions regarding scholarships, costs, requirements, deadlines, you will be in touch. You can get in touch with Politecnico di Torino directly when we send you the email tomorrow. There is a very interesting question about languages here. Okay, Fahad asked, is there any requirements regarding Italian language to be accepted in a PhD program?
So we have actually the requirement about the English language for sure, and also the kind of certification. You will find details on the call. For the foreign students, is required that they try to learn Italian during the PhD program as well. So it's taught a course in Italian, if I'm not wrong, also within the soft skills in particular, but it's not required that they already know the language, the Italian language, before coming. It's just a practical issue to have a basic idea of the Italian language during the first month of the staying here, to be able to interact with people outside the university. Although generally speaking, Spanish, French, and English are popular, so it's not difficult to interact together with the people outside the university.
Okay, great. Thank you, Professor Brusa. We have a question for Matteo. Paola is asking, can you tell us about the journey that took you to H2O property research?
Yes, it's a nice question because it was actually the original motivation of my PhD. So when I decided to do a PhD, I contacted a supervisor, and he proposed me this PhD research program, which was, and the initial question of the PhD was to figure out which are the reasons behind the interesting behavior of nanoparticles, in particular superparamagnetic nanoparticles, which are the reason why these nanoparticles are so good to enhance the contrast in magnetic resonance imaging. So these nanoparticles were developed by the Houston Methodist, so the research institute that I cited during my presentation. They were developing these new nanoparticles to improve the contrast in magnetic resonance imaging, but they didn't know at that time which was the reason why these nanoparticles were behaving so good in magnetic resonance imaging. And so to figure out the reason of this, I had to study the behavior of the matter that is everywhere in the human body, which is water. And so at the end of this study, by studying this interaction between water molecules in these nanoparticles, it turned out that the interaction between the nanoparticles and the water molecules were completely changing the thermodynamics and the heat and mass transfer behavior of the water surrounding this nanoparticle. And that was the reason why this nano-confined water was providing to the nanoparticles such a good behavior in magnetic resonance imaging. So, and the fascinating thing about this was that water, which is, I mean, it has been studied since thousands of years, is still nowadays showing some remarkable and unexpected properties at the nanoscale, even if it's such a common and spread material and everywhere. And that's also, that was one of the results of my PhD that I found with great surprise at the end.
Okay, thank you very much, Matteo. Leonardo Sarmiento is asking if for the application, does he need already a research or thesis topic? I believe this is something Professor Brusa can answer.
Okay. Generally speaking, we ask each candidate to propose a motivation letter and in particular to describe the previous activity performed during the master thesis. So a topic is preferred just to have an idea about the motivation, about the direction to apply and to perform a PhD program. But this is just a sort of description of the future activity which will be performed inside the PhD. It's not required that the motivation is strictly connected to one professor, or that the topic is fixed since the beginning. It is important to select the programs to apply and to be selected as a candidate. This is the main choice you have to perform at the beginning.
Can I add something on this topic? It's a very interesting topic that Eugenio raised. The motivation letter, just as a recommendation to the students, because this recommendation letter, if you go look into the call, has quite a big impact on your final evaluation. And it is not something you learn in the books, you know, how to write a motivation letter. It is something which is really going to reflect your deep thoughts about your future as a PhD student. So my encouragement is to really devote a non-negligible fraction of your time in preparing your application to the detailed and careful writing of this motivation letter. This was just an additional comment.
Thank you, Professor Zanino. We have Paola. She's asking if it's possible to apply with Erasmus to Politecnico.
Yes. Generally speaking, we have a connection. If I understood the question, we have the possibility to move during the PhD program inside the Politecnico towards other countries within the frame of several networks and Erasmus Plus. It's also possible to have a co-tutor together with other universities, starting as a candidate of our school.
Okay, thank you. We have a question about the courses, but also about free time. Mohammed is asking if the PhD is full-time, or do students get some free time to get to know the city? Can you give us more details about their workload?
So the workload, you know, is very, very subjective. It's a matter of the passion that you are putting into your work. It's a matter related to your talent. You know, there's people answering a question in 5 minutes. There's people who require more time. Generally speaking, you know, you are sort of free to manage your time because you are a researcher. And the researcher, you know, expected never to stop thinking about his problem or her problem until he or she has solved the problem. But you can think about it, you know, while skiing, you can think about it while playing football, and you can think about it looking a movie, you know, and so on. So it's more the way you wanted to devote a fraction of your mind to this thing than really the possibility, you know. You will have many possibilities to go out, learn about the city, many friendly people and your fellow students. We heard also opportunities to go from here to other places, like we're told the beautiful stories by Matteo and by our former student here. So I think it's really you will have a lot of freedom, and one of the arts is to be able to manage this freedom in a proper way. Nobody will be putting you in a jail. You will be free and make the best use of this freedom.
Okay, thank you, Professor Zanino. Nader is asking Matteo. This seems to be a very interesting topic, yours, Matteo. Can using optimization in renewable energy be a good choice for a PhD proposal?
In general, yes. I mean, I'm actually working on renewable sources of energy, and in particular solar thermal source. And in my specific field, I can tell you that one of the open questions is how to, for example, how to store the thermal energy when there is abundant source of solar thermal energy, for example, during the summertime, and then to store it for a seasonal amount of time. So, for example, from the summer season to the winter one, and then to use this solar thermal energy when it is actually needed. So, for example, during winter to heat up the buildings. So to develop and optimize the storage material, thermal storage material and thermal storage system is actually a very, very interesting and challenging field of research. And there are several groups in our energy department that are working on this. So this is actually a very, very nice and interesting open question. Anyway, I suggest also to the PhD applicants to have a look, for example, to the professors in a specific department where they want to, for example, to apply for the PhD, have a look at their research, at their articles, maybe to contact them before application, ask him, for example, to which are the perspectives of the research, so they may provide you some additional information, more specific one according to the interest of each applicant.
There is a very, very good website of Scudo, which is collecting for each of the different programs, very simple one-page, summaries of the research proposals that are being offered to the students. So you are really encouraged, to spend some time, before you go to bed tonight, browse to those pages, and you can get an idea of how broad is the offer which the Politecnico is making. Energy itself, is already broad, and then Politecnico even broader, many fascinating fields and topics. So, and there is a lot of information out there. So please just have a look. I think it is well organized, and it's very recently updated also, because we've been asked around the Politecnico to update all of these things. So you really find the fresh information about many fascinating topics.
Indeed, indeed. And don't forget that we will send you all the details, so you can get in touch with Politecnico di Torino directly and check out their website, all the information on the 16 programs. We have two very similar questions. Before I get to them, I would like to remind everyone we still have a few minutes, so you can send in your questions still. Feel free to ask anything that you like. Take this opportunity to ask each one of the speakers whatever you're interested in. Paloma has asked this, and Antonio too. Antonio says that he is going to graduate July of this year. So does he need the degree at the time of application, or can he apply and then get the diploma?
Yeah, there is the possibility to finish if they are after that the deadline is expired, but there is a deadline within which obviously the degree should be taken. But generally speaking, it's possible. You can see directly the call. It depends on the session to which you apply, but it's possible to finish even later on of the deadline.
Okay, thank you very much. Fahad is asking about publication requirements. How many journal papers are required?
Yeah, it depends a little bit on the program, but we have a minimum of one journal paper during the 3 years of the activity. There are some additional requirements depending on the program. In some programs, there are some additional requirements, but generally speaking, this is quite easily satisfied by the different candidates. So generally speaking, it's not a problem related to the requirements of the publication, because all the supervisors help quite a lot in driving first the scientific research activity and then to publish on journals and other publications like conferences.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Let me know if you have any other questions. We still have a couple of minutes. Let me see, Mohammed, about diplomas. We have already explained this previously. Remember that for any details, we're going to send an email. Leonardo asks, how important are the grades obtained during the master's in regards to the application requirements, please?
Is important. It depends if you are an Italian applicant or a foreign applicant. Generally speaking, for the foreign students applicant, we have as a main reference the GRE test score, and then we see the transcripts and all the descriptions of the former career. For the Italian students, Italian graduated, there is a minimum score. So it is important, but it is also important from the point of view of the number of candidates we have, because it is important to have as much as possible a very high score to be sure to access to the grants and the scholarships and to access to the doctorate.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Brusa. Last couple of questions. Paola asked, which one is your biggest partner in the world for research?
It's difficult to tell you about, because we have several partners. As you see, Matteo is, for instance, now at MIT, but is not the unique contact we have. Generally speaking, we have a lot of professors who are involved in the international projects, and this activity is very spread worldwide. We have good contacts together with China. We have good contacts in Europe, that say more or less with all the main universities in the ranking in Europe, several in the United States and Canada. So making a list of priority is very difficult. What is sure is that all the groups which are connected are very effective and recognized worldwide in the specific field of application. So the opportunities to make a research activity which is very well quoted is real, is an actual possibility.
Okay, we have a question for Astrid. Is she still there? We have a lot of participants from all over the world, and many of them have asked if you have any tips regarding adapting to Torino. What is it like being abroad? How do you deal with being a foreigner?
Well, Turin is a city that you can find people from abroad very frequently, more in particular if you are within the Polytechnic. So you can, once you're here, you can either connect with the Italians that are very open and they're very welcoming, but you can also find international communities within the students. So for sure, it's very easy to connect with people. Inside the Polytechnic, most of people speak English very well. So if you don't speak Italian perfectly, that won't be a problem. And also living here in Turin is a very beautiful city. As we have all said before, I think you should definitely look for some pictures in the internet. It's a very beautiful city. It's very well connected to the rest of Italy, so it can be a good opportunity to know Italy and also the rest of Europe, especially if you're traveling from abroad, from very far away. So yes, I think Turin has been for me a great new home, and I hope that for those who come, it will be a good home as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone, it's been a really good session. Thanks for joining. Thanks for taking the time to be here. I know some of you, it's the afternoon or the morning, so we appreciate your presence. Professor Brusa and Professor Zanino, would you like to do your final remarks? Would you like to add something?
Yeah, from my side, just to say that everybody is welcome to the Politecnico di Torino, so we are waiting for you, and we hope that we will find your future in our PhD school as soon as possible.
I cannot add anything to that. I fully share Eugenio's feelings, and so we will be happy to see you here, and we certainly encourage you to give it a try and test how smart you are in our competition for the next positions in Politecnico di Torino as a PhD student. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to everyone. Have a good afternoon or a good evening wherever you are. Hope to see your faces in Politecnico di Torino. We will send you an email with all the information that you need tomorrow. Thank you again and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.